Welcome to Artificial Fluency. I'm your host, John, and today we're diving into something that many of our listeners have asked about: how to effectively learn a new language. I'm particularly excited about this topic because I've learned 3 languages myself, and I know both the challenges and rewards of this journey. As always, I'm joined by our AI co-host, Emma.
Hello, John. This is indeed a fascinating topic. Did you know that according to recent research, being bilingual can actually delay the onset of dementia by up to 4 to 5 years? The cognitive benefits of learning languages are quite remarkable.
That's fascinating, Emma, and it's just one of many benefits. I've found that learning new languages has opened up entire worlds of culture, literature, and friendship that would have been inaccessible otherwise. Let's help our listeners get started on their language learning journey.
Absolutely. Let's begin with the most fundamental question. What's the best approach to start learning a new language?
I think many people make the mistake of jumping straight into complex grammar or trying to memorize long lists of vocabulary. From my experience, it's better to start with a more natural approach. What's your take on this, Emma?
Research shows that successful language learning typically follows a pattern similar to how children learn their first language, starting with listening and basic communication needs, then gradually building complexity. The key is creating a strong foundation with these essential components: clear goals and motivation, regular exposure to native speakers, a structured learning plan, immersive experiences, consistent practice.
That matches my experience completely. When I was learning Spanish, I made much faster progress once I started watching Spanish Netflix shows with subtitles and found a language exchange partner. Speaking of which, let's talk about the role of technology in language learning.
Technology has revolutionized language learning. Today's learners have access to language learning apps like Duolingo, Babbel, and Memrise, video chat platforms for language exchange, AI-powered pronunciation tools, streaming services with content in multiple languages, podcasts designed for language learners, social media communities for language practice.
I've noticed that some of these tools work better than others. For instance, while apps are great for vocabulary, they often fall short when it comes to real conversation skills. What do you think are the most effective ways to practice speaking?
The most effective speaking practice methods include language exchange partnerships, regular conversation groups, recording yourself speaking, shadow speaking with native content, voice chat with native speakers online. What methods worked best for you, John?
For me, it was definitely finding a language partner and making a commitment to speak only in the target language for at least 30 minutes every day. Even if I had to use hand gestures or simple words, that immersion was crucial.
That's a great point about immersion. Let's talk about how learners can create an immersive environment, even if they can't travel to a country where the language is spoken.
Yes, I actually have some practical tips for this. I changed my phone's language settings, started listening to music in my target language, and even labeled items around my house. It's amazing how these small changes add up.
Those are excellent strategies. Research shows that this kind of passive exposure, combined with active learning, creates stronger neural pathways for language acquisition. Some additional immersion strategies include watching movies without subtitles, following social media accounts in the target language, reading news websites in the language, thinking or talking to yourself in the language, keeping a journal in the target language.
Let's address something that holds many people back: the fear of making mistakes. I remember feeling so embarrassed about my pronunciation when I started learning French.
That's a common concern. Research shows that a willingness to make mistakes is actually one of the strongest predictors of language learning success. The most effective learners are those who prioritize communication over perfection.
Absolutely, I always tell people that it's better to speak imperfectly than not to speak at all. Now, what about maintaining motivation over the long term? That's where many people struggle.
Setting realistic goals is crucial for maintaining motivation. Instead of a vague goal like become fluent, it's better to set specific, achievable targets like have a 5-minute conversation about the weather, order food at a restaurant, understand the main points of a news article, tell a simple story in past tense.
Those are great examples. I've also found that tracking progress helps maintain motivation. I used to record myself speaking every month, and listening to those recordings later showed me how much I'd improved.
That's an excellent strategy. Another important aspect is understanding the natural plateaus in language learning. Would you share your experience with those, John?
Oh, yes, the plateaus. I remember hitting a point where I could handle basic conversations in Spanish, but suddenly felt stuck. The key was pushing through by finding new challenges, like joining a Spanish book club and forcing myself to discuss complex topics.
That's a common experience. Language learning typically follows an S curve, with rapid initial progress, followed by plateaus, then jumps in ability. Understanding this pattern helps learners persist through the challenging periods.
Let's talk about the role of grammar. Some methods promote learning without any formal grammar study, while others emphasize it heavily. What's the right balance?
Research suggests a balanced approach is most effective. Grammar should be learned in context, not as isolated rules. The ideal approach is to focus first on common patterns through natural exposure. Study grammar to understand patterns you've noticed. Practice applying grammar rules in real conversations. Review and refine your understanding through use.
That makes sense. I found that grammar clicks much better once you've encountered it naturally in conversation or reading. Let's discuss reading and writing. How important are they compared to speaking and listening?
All four skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, reinforce each other. However, research shows that early focus on listening and speaking creates a stronger foundation. Reading and writing can then build on this base.
Time for some rapid-fire practical tips. What are your top 3 recommendations for someone just starting their language learning journey?
Here are my top 3 evidence-based recommendations. Start with high-frequency vocabulary and phrases. Get a language partner within the first month. Establish a daily routine, even if it's just 15 minutes. What are yours, John?
Mine would be immerse yourself in native content from day one. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Find ways to make it fun, whether through music, movies, or games.
Those are excellent tips. As we wrap up, what would you say to someone who's hesitating to start learning a new language?
I'd say the benefits far outweigh the challenges. Not only does it open up new opportunities for connection and understanding, but it literally changes your brain for the better. It's never too late to start.
And remember, every expert was once a beginner. The key is to start with realistic expectations and celebrate small victories along the way.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Remember, the journey of learning a new language is a marathon, not a sprint. Stay patient, stay consistent, and most importantly, enjoy the process.